Hello, my dears. My name is Joanna, and I welcome you to Johanna Takonis, the Deconstruction of C-PTSD podcast. In this episode, we will talk about the question, should I commit suicide, for the second time. This time, the focus is on internal struggles, or, in other words, is the call coming from the inside? So that is just one way of seeing it. The other is, does the enemy want you to think the call is coming from the inside, so you leave the house and run into the enemy's arms? That is an important difference one should know about. The topic of suicide remains a taboo, and covering this might save lives and therefore is absolute crucial. So let us talk about it. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the thought experiment of leaving for another dimension and seeing if this experiment would have any effect on our thoughts, which would be a big sign that the things that make us unhappy are external reasons. It can be, of course, both, or that an external reason pretending to be an internal one. You know, like telling you that you would never make it on your own. In other words, internal reasons are a lot muddier and harder to define and grasp than external ones. So take everything with a grain of salt and so on, especially with depression going around and spreading false rumors. Nonetheless, we will try another thought experiment, so a bit more challenging. I want you to go inside of yourself. This method is also helpful if you try to find the origin of a trigger or trauma. It requires you to focus on yourself and ignore the things around you. This gets easier the more you do it. Once you focus on yourself and how you are feeling, in that moment we start. I want you to think a sentence or better a feeling and see how the rest of your insides respond. Like you sometimes figure out what you want to eat by imagining a dish or thinking about a cuisine and then see if your body responds well to it. The classics for this experiment are I feel lonely and I feel worthless and I can't do anything right and I just make everything worse, and so on. Now, we often believe these statements because someone told them to us and we believed them. This usually happens in the childhood, but also can happen later on. I will get into the inner voice another time. Also, none of these statements are set in stone, yet they cripple us. Many of the internal struggles, we first start with depression and then the hidden outside influence. I cover next week sickness, mourning, and the conclusion. The thing with depression is that it is the most easy and hardest to identify at the same time, as it bribes the scouts looking for them, so to speak. But do you feel hopeless? Empty? Everything is just kind of there. Can't motivate yourself to anything. Feel like a burden for those around you. If some or all apply to you, then you most likely suffer from depression. In my experience, usually behind depression is feeling trapped and not being able to escape. So the brain just kind of gives up, which is a reasonable approach. But in our modern world, we get this activated despite still being able to walk away from it. PTSD very often causes this form of depression, and the more you deal with your PTSD, the weaker the depression gets. So clinging on hope to fight depression is a pretty pointless endeavor, as depression feeds on that. What you need is a neutral thought, like, it will pass, or in this context, if everything is pointless anyway, why not set yourself a date to revisit the question? This will reduce the pressure of the issue on yourself and you can focus on other things. because milling around how hopeless everything is never really helped anyone. The question why you think everything is hopeless is far more promising, as this is usually the way out and leads to a more joyful life. As I mentioned at the start, there is a good possibility that your struggles appear not to come from the outside, and via methods like nagging and gaslighting, you will believe that. Therefore, no matter how much you try to fix this issue, it won't work, because the source of the issue isn't where you think it is, which leads to the age-old question, am I crazy or everyone around me? The good thing about methods like this is that they need constant reinforcement or the illusion starts to fade. But what are signs if you can't just unplug for a week to see if things change? Maybe asking yourself these questions will help. Do I feel safe? Do I have a place of warmth I can go to? Do I feel like I can speak freely? Are my successes being celebrated? Am I scared to make a mistake? Am I scared to admit I made a mistake? Am I feeling safe, protected, and, like myself, in my own home? If those questions aren't answered with yes, then you should ask yourself, why? And tread very, very carefully. Because those who control and influence you will most likely pay close attention and often take the lack of control not very well. Be extremely careful and strategic about it. Don't confront them. Lay low and try to figure out how far the reach goes. That was it for today's episode. I hope you found it helpful. Hope you are safe and well. And, as always, if you have any questions or feedback and the like, please let me know at contactme@johannatakunis.com. More information and transcript you can find as usually under johannatakunis.com/podcast/ and links are in the description. I hope to see you next time. Watch yourself and have a wonderful time.